Hello. Thank you. It's been, year and a half in our time, and I guess actually no, I've been back for a year. Thank you. Calling from Lausanne, Switzerland.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you. It's only taken you about a year or something to persuade me to do this. But, very much.
Oh my God. Seriously? Gin is the clear alcohol that I like to drink.
You know what? My other half, Nicola, and I have done something like 4 gin tours in the last 5 years, and I should be able to answer that because they always tell you at the start. All I can remember is scenes of people lying in gutters covered in sores because they'd drunk Giniver and stuff because there was nothing else. And what led to making beer as a result, but I can't remember. Something to do with juniper berries. Hmm. Hmm.
Good. That's great. So I'm a big fan of gin martinis, dirty with olives. Three, no more, definitely no less, is what I prefer. But basically, kind of anything that goes through it. I love the herbal aspects of gin. Yeah, and with this lovely quarantine lockdown period, I am the household bartender and experimenting with different cocktails and whatnot.
Right, apologies, we might have to start again. Let me see.
Great.
Lukash can't hear. He can hear Lauren Davids, but you can
Oh,
obviously hear me. Same on PC and phone. Do, 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 do,
Cut,
do.
cut, cut, cut.
Yep.
are we still live or not?
Yes, we're still live, but we can start
Okay,
again.
great.
Okay, Lukash, can you hear us now? Okay, he can hear us now. Okay, then. Take two to all of our 4 live viewers, of which Lukash is one. Apologies, we'll start again. And this way, we're slightly more prepared, we think, or not. Let's just mix it up.
Okay.
This will be a fun editing project for the weekend.
Gonna need this now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. When do you want me to introduce what I'm drinking, or it doesn't matter?
Just after we've discussed gin to start off, and then you're going to have a practical application.
Fabulous. Thank you. Just
Good.
want to be prepared. Don't want to.
Okay then. So Lukash has confirmed he can hear me. We are using the right input for audio from me. Let's start again. And good evening. This is a special episode of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. And just like with the previous special episodes, we are going to be discussing a subject that we're quite passionate about, alcohol, and in this case, gin. So, who better to have on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast to talk about gin than our friend Laura Howe. Laura, welcome back to the Tech Travel Geeks podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here, and glad to be here from the same part of the world that you're in this time.
Yes, not Japan. Welcome back to the podcast from Switzerland.
Yes, happy to be here, and especially happy to be here for something I'm severely passionate about in a way that I'm just going to go with as pride.
And not only are you in Europe, you're in Switzerland, the most neutral country in Europe. Speaking of neutrality, let's introduce our other guest, David Lowe, who is from Perth, Scotland. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you. Great to be here at last. Took us a long time to get this together.
It did. And you are very passionate about gin. You've been a happy consumer of gin-related products for many years. We can talk more about exactly what you're drinking this evening, because it is related to our previous special podcast, which was about craft beer, with Alana Harris and Zan Markin. But thank you for joining us. Let's talk about gin. Laura, what is gin?
Gin is the clear liquid that I drink when I don't feel like drinking whiskey.
That's a very good definition. So gin is a distilled drink made from juniper berry mash. And very tasty it can be too. Nowadays, people also make gin liqueurs. There's quite a variety of gins available. This evening, I am drinking Eden Mill Botanical Project Rhubarb Ginger and Blackcurrant Gin Liqueur. So it's not just the distillate, you can make liqueurs out of it. And I'm drinking that with some diet ginger ale with some kiwi fruits ice cubes, just to keep the manliness up.
Oh my goodness. And is that a mason jar glass?
It is. It's a mason jar glass. This is from Lagunitas Brewery. It has the happy dog on the side.
Very good.
That's some commitment and some mixed placement on that jar.
Very mixed placement. So how about you, Laura? What are you drinking?
So I am drinking the new house favorite, which is a gin basil smash, which is basically gin, lemon juice, simple syrup, and muddled basil. So basically in the house, we call this adult lemonade because it's a little spice, or not, it's a little more sophisticated with the basil element in it.
Very good. And from what I see from your Instagram and Twitter feeds, you and your flatmate or roommate have been doing some very good work with your cocktail selection.
We are, yes. So my chore in this household is to make cocktails around dinner time. So that has been always something that I love cocktails usually through a relationship with a bartender. But since that is not part of the current world of the last 5 to 6 weeks with global lockdown, that is now my job. So I've been having a lot of fun with that, which also includes going through all of our lovely, beautiful bottles. But I can go into our shared collection of alcohol that's decided to join me on the live stream version of the podcast in a bit.
Excellent. How about you, David? What are you drinking at the moment?
Right this minute, I am drinking a craft lager by Belfield Brewery, which you probably can't read, so I'm going to put it right up to the camera. Belfield being a small brewery in Edinburgh, I'm sure we can come back to that after. The standout thing is it's gluten-free beer and very good for you. And one of the few, if only, dedicated gluten-free breweries in the country. Gin has become a sort of bedtime habit. I've developed this routine called Gin and Trump.
Oh no.
Pretty much every night about 10:30, 11 when Trump starts his comedy show. That's when the gin comes out because you kind of need it. Beer early on though.
That sounds like a very good daily routine. Right then, we're all in lockdown. We've all been drinking not only gin, but things like beer, wine, lots of different spirits. What is your favorite gin? What is your go-to one, Laura, in a classic gin and tonic?
Oh, I love Botanist. That's been my favorite for gin tonic. My go-to top favorite gin is Monkey 47, which tragically is not on the shelf behind me because we have finished that bottle. But that one normally, I actually really like that one just straight.
Ooh, straight. That's a good option.
Right.
How about you, David?
My favorite is Opier, and I think that's how you pronounce it, or Ophir. I've never quite worked it out, but
Mm.
very nice. Quite spicy. I think it's pretend Indian gin made in Scotland. Eden Mill after that. Eden Mill Love Gin is very good. It's very good with strawberry stuff in it. Those two, or Tanqueray if nothing else.
Yes, I'm more of an old, grumpy old person, so Tanqueray 10 for me. Just straight on ice with a little bit of lime juice.
Mm.
That's the
That's
simple way.
straight and to the point.
Yes. This it was a learning process. So the way I was introduced to this was in 2015. I was on a long haul flight with Qatar, and when the drinks cart came round, they asked me what I'd like to drink, and being used to British Airways' staple, which is gin and bitter lemon, I asked for a gin and bitter lemon, and the cabin crew were very, very confused and gave me a bit of a dark look. The funny thing is that the cabin crew looked at the purser nodded, and they proceeded to pour me a whole tumbler of gin and added a bit of lemon.
That sounds like a lovely mistake or a
Yes.
lovely option.
I slept for the rest of the flight. So, yes, you can drink gin straight. It's not recommended, but it does work, especially if you add some citrus to it. And obviously, we've talked about mixers here. Technically, mixing gin with a mixer makes a cocktail or a gin and mixer. What do you drink with gin if you have a mixer, Laura?
It's just one. I go for gin and ginger. It's just it's super fresh and super wonderful. Otherwise, I go for, mix up a martini seems to be the best one, or the smash, which is just a lot of sugar at the moment.
And how about you, David?
I'm really dull. Just tonic, good tonic, Fever Tree, or to be honest, cheap tonic too, just as much. Light though, I never really liked super sweet tonic that much. So something light, very nice.
Good. There we go. Apologies for that noise. That was me adjusting my laptop. So gin and tonic. It is a staple. Is the urban legend or the historic thing that tonic avoided you getting malaria? Is that true? Has it been disproven? Shall we continue believing it just for justifying our consumption of gin and tonic?
It's been in the news, hasn't it? Because the quinine-based drug is the one Trump thinks everybody should take, and doesn't seem to be true. But it is quinine that's the component, isn't it, that does the job.
Yes. So, could this be a nice psychological way of staying indoors and thinking we're doing our thing to beat the COVID-19 is drinking more gin and tonic? We'll be positive and just carry on.
We'll go with it because I mean, chances are I like things in my gin and tonic. So and the whole, the Facebook urban legend about COVID is to continue drinking. Granted, people want you to drink things that are warm liquid, not cool liquid, but as long as something's going down your throat, I'm all for it. And I think that's great.
Yes.
And if it keeps you at home.
And how is the availability of gin in Switzerland at the moment?
Right. So that is where I'm embarrassed by my gin collection at the moment because it's available, right? So you can get your Tanquerays, you can get your Bombays, no problem, at the supermarket at the corner shop. But I like my botanical gins, which is part of the problem. Whereas I had to run down and get a bottle of Bombay just to kind of hold us through. I am waiting for my online order of alcohol to come, which should have come 2 days ago. There's this lovely website, what's literally called drink.ch, that has like domestic, like from Switzerland, like especially in Swiss, and also across Europe and international liquor. And the best part about it is you buy it online, they ship it to your door, and it's a bank transfer the next day. But something happened, so we're a little delayed. I'm a little light. Yeah. So, I like what I like. I like nice things and specific things. But it when in doubt, there's water, I guess.
Good. Whereas here in Scotland, we're, I think, blessed by some great home delivery services, including from Belfield Brewery. You can order your mixed cases or dedicated cases of cans or bottles, and they usually deliver within a couple of days. You can get Belfield Brewery, their gluten-free beers, from Amazon too. So if you're a Prime subscriber, free delivery there. And Amazon Prime do deliver alcohol as well. So whilst there are some delays in deliveries at the moment, they're still pretty good, especially in urban areas.
And if you happen to be somewhere like where you are, Matteo, you can use something like Drinkly that will bring you drink in about an hour if they have it in stock. It's a dangerous thing
Yes.
at the minute.
It's one of those on-demand startups that makes sense in Scotland. They have a captive market, literally.
Don't know if it's the same where you are, but Deliveroo serves drink here, has done since it started. So like Brewdog used to do it regularly, but pretty much every restaurant that's still open needs to get rid of its drinks. So they're all doing delivery or something else just now. You can get a drink from just about anywhere.
Yeah, it's a very interesting market because of, obviously, I don't know how it is in Switzerland, Laura. Licensing laws in Scotland are very, very strict, and in some areas are very limited by the definition of on-license and off-license. But in these sort of strange times, emergency licenses have been issued, and I'm surprised companies like Weatherspoons haven't jumped on the bandwagon and started offering their own alcohol delivered service.
Too busy trying to lay everybody off, I think.
Yeah, so there's no, I don't know the full details about licensing or not in Switzerland, but basically alcohol is pretty plentiful all around on the groceries and in the corner shops and even delivery. So food delivery services, you can also order wine and beer as well if you want to pay the premium delivery price in Switzerland, which is just sometimes worth it. Support your local economy. So that is pretty lucky. But I was just thinking about, it's a different situation in the States, for example, because it's not as easy to get things delivered by, Uber Eats or whatever, if it's alcohol, or even on Amazon. So we're quite lucky to be in Europe and to have our choice of beverage straight to our door.
Why is it different in the States? Just the age limits or local license or something?
Laws like that. They don't like to encourage drinking in the US at all. So I'm sure it has to do with some of the delivery laws, and you don't know, like, I could be 16 and ordering it online, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
True. It's the same reason, even just delivering your groceries from the local supermarket, Tesco. I remember when I was at university, I used to be a Tesco.com delivery driver, and we had to ask for ID to prove that the person we were delivering to was 18 or over, just in case there was some alcohol-related product that wasn't showing up. Even chocolate liqueurs here can cause someone in a shop or a delivery driver to get a £1,000 or £2,000 fine for delivering those to someone under the age of 18.
Ooh, then that must mean that the liqueur is real alcohol.
Yes. Those Anton Berg chocolates are an alarm bell for test purchases from the licensing board or police here.
Amazing. Good to know.
In retail, if you want to make sure you get good customer service, make sure you have alcohol in your basket, and they will ensure they ID you if you look 25 or under. And it's not just a compliment, they really do. If they don't, you risk quite a large fine as an individual working in a supermarket. So it's one of those really strange things about the Scottish relationship with alcohol. It's not as bad as places like Sweden, where if you go to Sweden for the weekend, you might struggle to get anything apart from the £25 pint of beer with your burger. They only sell alcohol for 3-4 hours a day on a Saturday afternoon in government controlled shops.
Was not aware of that. It's Sweden, and that seems to be a highly recommended place for my friends to give to me. So something about that intel is off.
It is. It's a very strange thing. Lukash lived in Sweden, our chief aperture officer at the Tech Travel Geeks, but I don't think he missed out on much with regards to alcohol. He's not a big drinker.
Mm.
Whereas a weekend in Malmo is one of Candice and I's favorite things to do. Fly to Copenhagen, get the train over the bridge, and you're in Sweden. Very nice, relaxing city to be in. But alcohol is horrendously expensive, as well as very limited as to where you can purchase it.
Thing is, if you like beer in Sweden, it's about treble the strength of everywhere else.
Oh,
Probably because it's expensive, or maybe the two go together. I don't know. I remember being in one of the airports coming home once from a conference in Sweden, and had Carlsberg IPA, which I've never heard of before. I don't. Maybe you can't buy it outside of Scandinavia.
hmm.
Had I think I had 2 pints of it and something to eat, and then ordered a third and paid the bill. And my name got called because I got the flight time wrong. So I necked the third one, then found out walking past the bar they were about 9%. And yeah, that flight was a quick one.
That was probably a quick hop back to Edinburgh, right?
Yeah, but it passed very quickly. I think I slept most of it.
Amazing. That's the best way to go.
I think it was about 50 quid as well, which probably
Uh-huh.
reflects Sweden too.
There you go.
Carlsberg is a great company based in Copenhagen, Denmark. They do a lot more than just beer, and there are variants of beers that you can find in Scandinavia. They do an energy drink, which ironically goes very well with vodka.
And
Yes.
you know this? Why?
I've spent too much time in Scandinavia, probably.
Too much time in the pub.
So how does the Carlsberg energy drink compare with vodka compared to the Red Bull and vodka?
The Carlsberg stuff is greener and more citrusy. Less acidity at the end, so it's not like it doesn't have the uric acid content of Red Bull.
Sounds like a taste test waiting to happen.
It does. Actually, that would be quite a fun one. I
That
must
would.
remember to get some of that energy drink and bring it back.
Well, yeah.
Laura, speaking about beer in airports and travel, you seem to be the creator of the term Tinykin.
Yes.
Tell us
Well,
more about the Tinykin.
I am not the founder of the Tinykin, but I'm definitely the one who made it famous. So I am, like Matteo, I'm a SkyTeam Allegiance with airline partners, which means that I fly Delta, KLM, and Air France. So one of my favorite things for international travel and just travel in general is getting access to the lounge, because I am somebody who loves free things. And so I love going to a place that is super special that you can only access if you are supposed to be there. And so as a VIP, I like to pretend that I am the most VIP, even though, you can get access, whatever. So the beauty of the KLM Air France lounges is that they stock Heineken beer. But the best part about it is that the beer that they have in the cans are smaller than normal size. So it's kind of, reminiscent of airline flying of 20 years ago, when you used to get like a can of Coke or Pepsi and it'd be like smaller, right? So basically, one of my dear friends who I also converted over to the SkyTeam side, and when he lived in Europe for a while, he kind of started this, where it's a ritual where anytime that we go to a SkyTeam lounge, we pop open one of those tiny beers, and it is no longer a Heineken, it is a Tinykin registered trademark of the internet. So luckily, Matteo has decided that I'm one of his influencers, and decided he too has jumped onto this trick as well.
Yes.
So that is the origin of the Tinykin.
So the Tinykin in my context is a bit more specific to the KLM lounges, because the KLM Crown lounges in Amsterdam have Heineken on tap, and you go up and serve yourself. But they ensure that the glasses are small. There's two reasons for that. One, a small beer glass will never get warm. And the other is they probably want to avoid you getting too drunk at 4 a.m.
Sure.
Wrong.
But it is one of the great pleasures of flying through the KLM Crown Lounges, either Schengen zone or non-Schengen zone in Amsterdam, is to have a Heineken that you pour yourself and use the Dutch foam stripper to take the foam off the top.
That is true. I tend to go on more of the Air France paths, unfortunately. So I don't get, but anytime I do transfer through Schiphol, and especially in the non-Schengen zone, I run as fast as I can, which is usually, I rarely have enough time to get up there, just so that I can go into the main KLM Crown Lounge and get that draft Heineken and usually send a selfie to Mateo.
Very much appreciated. It is too. So, David, speaking of beers and travel, what was the Edinburgh to London challenge?
Oh,
It used to be the 12 can challenge. It sort of came down to 10 to make it more realistic. Many years ago, when I worked in Glasgow, my boss, who actually founded Belfield, Alistair, just mentioned one night we were on the 5:40 train to London from Glasgow, pardon me, and our first meeting was at 12 at ITV, and he said to me, "Let's just get 12 cans and a bacon sandwich and see what happens." And we never had the guts to do it, so we used to do it on the way home. And I don't know if he's going to watch this, but a friend of mine, Mike Kinsella, and I tried it once coming home from one of these meetings. I think we got to 8. But the way the trains work, the last one home changes the crew because they live halfway and swap over and things like that. So the people taking us back from, I think it was Preston, the crew changed over, which is almost halfway. They weren't going to serve alcohol for the second half of the journey. So we bought it all up front to make sure it was there. By the time we got to the 4th, it was all warm because it was a sunny day like this in April, and the beer was absolutely disgusting. It was so warm because it sat in the window. We opened one of the cans and a fountain came out. So that kind of ruined it for me, but we got to 8. I know people who have done it, and the rules said it had to be 500ml cans of Stella. So not any beer. It had to be really bad. So I've never done it. And I always talk about it. And we've tried it on the East Coast. Mateo and I had a workmate called Jegor Shoot who wanted to try this. We did a first class journey from Edinburgh to London where the trolley came down at every station. And that wasn't going to be enough to get to 10. But we found an old couple that weren't drinking next to us and asked them to get a drink and hide it. And we would get theirs before the trolley came back round again. So again, we got to about 8 in the afternoon, but that's as near as we've ever been. Bear in mind, this is 4.5 hours. So if that helps it to work out. So 4 liters in 4 hours, roughly.
I think it's achievable. The other advantage is that you don't have the rule regarding air travel, which is one on the ground is 2 in the air. So the cabin pressurization affects you less.
But then train toilets. I mean,
yes. Yeah. I was like the bladder ratio here as I'm doing this count. Yeah.
Depends where you sit. Yeah, it's not the most pleasant thing. I guess if you're doing the 12, that's 6 liters in 4.5 hours.
But I suppose the bathroom gets nicer the more you drink.
Yeah, it passes by.
Yeah. Laura, if you haven't had the pleasure of British National Rail or whatever the name of the company operating them, there's a YouTube video I will link to later, which I think sums it up beautifully. It's a comedy duo, Armstrong and Miller, who did a take on Fife and Bravins, who were a late 70s, early 80s musical duo, playing their train song. And it covers both alcohol, in this case, the contents of a hip flask, as well as the toilets on the train. But I'll link to that. It is a very amusing thing that sums up British rail travel and consumption of alcohol.
The lesson we learned last time we tried this was not to go to the bar before you get on the train, because it kind of ruins the challenge. And that's where we blew it last time, because we had 3 or 4 before we got on the train in the first place. If we'd thought ahead, it might have worked.
Sounds like something you got to do again.
Yeah, Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Once
But
the memory wears off.
Funny enough, the trains are still running, so you could probably do it in peace.
Yeah, that's true.
You might get arrested, but all the same.
yes, the rail is still is still running, but at much reduced rates. I can say that because I live a few hundred meters from the rail line, and can really tell when they've cut down on the services.
Yeah, it's a shame. There's ghost trains. I live next to a station. There's ghost trains go past every hour.
Oh wow! So they need to keep them running.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to move them around just in case a key worker needs to get on. But mostly, I've never seen a head in the window for about 4 weeks.
Laura, you mentioned that you took the car for a drive just to see if it still worked.
Yes. So so my flatmate has a car, which is lovely. So last Friday we had an excursion where we got in the car to make sure that it still works, and we actually went out to the wineries here along the Riviera. Yes. I'm like, what is the words? Up on the hills, to stock up on some wine because our wine stash was low. We're getting very good at a new hobby of emptying bottles. So that was our big to do. And I was reminded today that we get to go and do that again on Friday when the wineries open, because the whole purpose last Friday of only buying 4 bottles was to see which ones we wanted to get more of. So this Friday is the adventure that I'm very much looking forward to.
Good. And which wines did you get on Friday? Which ones did you like?
We got all Swiss local wines, so the ones that are grown here, which Swiss wines are more like, they're younger, and so they're not like, my palate is more bold reds. So I'm from the west coast of the United States, Seattle area, so I'm used to like big bold Washington Cab Francs and Cabernets. Apologies, Matteo, I'm not very fluent in Italian wines yet. But so whites are very popular here in Switzerland, especially the ones that go the Chablis, which goes well with fondue. So we got some Chablis, we got a Pinot Noir, which we have not drank yet, a Rosé Pinot Noir, which was quite delicious, Viognier, which was delicious as well, and then I can't remember the other ones. Some whites, some reds, but to me they're sweeter because they're very young.
They're sweeter and lighter. Alpine reds tend to be like that. For the more sort of Seattle or Californian style rich reds, you need to go down south of Italy, Puglia, Calabria, Sicily. That's definitely more the West Coast US taste.
Exactly. So that's more of my palate when it comes to wine. But, get what we can close by.
Laura, have you heard of Buckfast?
No, and this sounds like a trap I'm about to walk into. What is this?
Buckfast is a tonic wine, very popular in Scotland, which, a bit like energy drinks that we were discussing earlier, has added caffeine and other herbal additions to it. It's apparently made by monks in England, and very popular in Scotland, especially among football fans. David, can you confirm?
Yeah, because you can get it in your pocket.
Is it really small?
Tiny little bottles, but one of them is enough, for the afternoon. So, not that I've done it.
Whereas, as a young student in Scotland in the beginning of the 2000s, I was introduced to this, thought it was terrible, but understood the functionality of it. It had purpose of existence.
So is it an energy drink or an alcoholic drink?
It's both. Tonic wine.
It's tonic wine.
Oh God, what does that even mean?
Well, it's made by monks to be an elixir. It's meant to pick you up. It is genuinely made for good reasons, but now it's so popular, it's kind of abused. But yeah, it is originally like a medicine.
Oh, interesting. So Matteo, when did you last have one?
It must have been around about 2005.
Oh, so are these things still sold?
They still are. So when members of my team are onboarded and they come to Edinburgh for their training, one of the things I pick up at Costco is a box of mini Buckfast. They're like little miniatures of whiskey, but of Buckfast, and ensure that they're distributed amongst the teams around
So
kind of
is so is Buckfast in the same category of like drink lore as Iron Brew?
Uh, in folklore, yes.
Folklore, yes.
For
Drink lore, yes,
subculture, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
yes.
Great.
It's not
No,
made
it's
from iron girders.
No, it's not Scottish either. That's as you said, but it's become out one of our drinks.
We Buckfast or Iron Brew?
Well, Buckfast, pardon me. It's made in Cornwall or someplace like that, southwest England, down there anyway. So it's not Scottish, but it's become one of our standard drinks up here because it's cheap.
So, oh, okay, that makes sense. That was a good move to culturally appropriate that drink from the British then.
Yes.
It's one of the side effects, Matteo, isn't it? Because in Scotland, drink is now minimum priced per unit. So you have to pay a minimum amount per unit of alcohol in the bottle. And in Britain and probably everywhere else, cider used to be the drink you would buy if you wanted to go out and just have a night in the park or something. So you'd pay, what, £2, bless, for a 3 litre bottle of cider. But since the minimum alcohol price came in, cider got really expensive. And suddenly Buckfast, which is kind of the drink that people associate with drunks in Scotland, became the cheaper one.
It
So you
is.
buy quite a reasonable bottle of Buckfast for less than 3 litres of awful cider now. So yeah, it's even worse.
So is this what you'll be serving for me, Matteo, as part of my Edinburgh local experience when we can travel again?
Yes. I will make sure that's maybe one of the last things you do.
Oh no.
One of the first places I'll take you is obviously Belfield Brewery's tap room, which is right in the centre of town, really easy to access from the old town, and just round the corner from the Queen's residence in Edinburgh, Holyrood Castle.
Fabulous. This sounds like a great itinerary.
There's a restaurant in Glasgow that sells dishes made with Buckfast and ice cream made with Buckfast, which is apparently really good. If you look up a YouTube channel, I'll send the name afterwards on Twitter because it's gone right out of my head. Munchies, I think it's called. They do a tour of the world on certain types of food, and they went to Glasgow, and the chef was actually drinking neat from a bottle of Buckfast as he cooked, but he made ice cream and some other things with Buckfast in it. I think it was spare ribs with Buckfast barbecue sauce. Apparently, it's a bit of a delicacy now through there. So
Sounds amazing.
if you make it that far, it's apparently very good.
So, Laura, I saw on Instagram that you made cinnamon buns or cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
I really admire your flatmate for her manipulation in getting you to make them.
Yes.
Did
so
you use any alcohol in the mix?
absolutely not. It's a family recipe, and I come from Americans, which we had prohibition until I was 21 in my household. There was no alcohol in there and barely any cinnamon, which is where the whole discussion comes from. Yeah. So background on the sticky buns, as that's how we should be calling them, is around when we heard rumors that lockdown was going to come, right? So when the Swiss authorities were going to start it, right? Me and my flatmate hauled into her car and went to one of the big grocery stores just outside of town because I live in the city center, just to load up. And I just announced that I was going to make sticky buns at some certain part. Because part of my excitement about her moving in, and she moved in about in February, where she was bringing her KitchenAid. I was like, oh my God, I can finally bake and have somebody else to eat these things instead of just me, because my cat is worthless at eating human food. So yeah, so pretty much as of, I think it was a week or two ago, so we'd been in lockdown for about 3 weeks, I had announced that I just had this craving for funfetti cake, which is something that's very popular in America that comes in a box. It's basically white cake that has sprinkles inside, and it was just, I don't know, something like homesickness or kind of the anxiety about the pandemic. I just wanted to taste of home. So my flatmate just kind of looked at me. She was sitting on the couch doing something with like this death stare and was like, excuse me, whatever happened to these sticky buns you were promising? I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, good point. So all of a sudden, cake got postponed, sticky buns were back on the menu. And that included quite an ordeal, because it's a family recipe to make the dough that, came from the high school that my mom went to, from sweet rolls. And a whole to do of getting down my bread machine from the States, going through a power amplifier, hoping that I didn't pop any of the fuses while we were here in this period to make the dough. I'm sure I could have done it from scratch, but whatever. And then making the lovely cinnamon rolls, which really they were just caramelized on the inside, and then I added some cinnamon. So at least it says I put. They were absolutely amazing. And I did make the cake frosting. So cake frosting on cinnamon sticky buns are delicate and amazing. So I'm very much, yeah. So we're, like most people in the world, are exercising our culinary curiosities during this time. I am wearing full normal street clothes right now, even though you can't see I have jeans, no belt, but I have come to terms with the fact that I am one belt loop bigger, and that's okay.
As long as you're comfortable. And thank you for dressing up for this episode of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast.
I washed my hair. I put on makeup. You guys are so yeah. You're lucky.
So I managed to find the charger to my beard trimmer. Only did my chin by the time the trimmer ran out of battery. So it's now on charge, hence the insane handlebar mustache. Which will... I
like it. I think you should keep it. I'm loving the quarantine facial hair that's coming out of this.
Thank you. We'll need to see if Candice agrees. I doubt she will.
Right, your face is not your own. Great point.
Yes. My cat quite enjoyed the longer facial hair. He used to use it as a brush. Rodney used to rub his head against my chin.
Oh, well, bring it back. Rodney needs to look amazing.
Poor chap. How about you, David? Are you dressing up for meetings, looking formal?
No.
No.
And I haven't had my hair cut in about 6 months either, and it's getting really weird at the back because there isn't much left on the top, as you know. No, my workmates at the list went to work at home pretty early. I think this is week 6 for us because we work in quite a small enclosed space and didn't really fancy being there if we didn't have to be. So we went home a while ago, and everybody's kind of got used to it. Nobody's dressing up really. We do have a nice Friday afternoon where we all get a drink, kind of like this on Zoom, and get together. And one or two people get dressed for that, but that's it. I'm in newsreader mode today, so there's something up here and then shorts underneath that you can't see.
So the newsreader mode seems to be the thing. Boohoo.com, which is a UK clothing retailer, today were in the news because they were booming in top sales, whereas joggers and tracksuit trousers and yoga pants seem to be all the rage in the downstairs department. So the Zoom effect, or the video call effect, is really happening.
I actually love it. I mean, yes, I am fully embracing daytime activewear, in-house activewear, nighttime activewear, and actually activewear where I'm active in. So this is just, I have to remember sometimes how to blow dry the hair and put on makeup, or at some point doing this on a regular basis. So this is not my normal quarantine look, but...
Oh, thank you for making the effort.
No problem. I did so good.
Good. As everyone knows, the Tech Travel Geeks are the destination for fashion advice. The YouTube channel is doing great thanks to our fashion advice. No, it's not. We're currently...
So wait, before we get off this topic, Matteo, what footwear do you have on today?
I am wearing my fake camo Crocs with socks.
Excellent.
With socks.
Yes, Crocs with socks. It is a fashion statement. I've reached that middle-aged point in my life where I've all but given up.
But how they're fake, that means that no real crocodiles were harmed in the making of those?
Yes, or let's put it this way. These are Tesco's own brand, the UK supermarket chain. Back in the day when I used to work for Tesco, used to have their own clothing brand, and they had Florence and Fred fake Crocs. And these camo ones were something that caught my eye, and I said, I need a pair of those. Because they're not just Crocs, they're fake ones, which just elevates them a little bit more.
Oh, so this is like a long time piece of footwear that you've had in your life.
Yes, I have been using these both at home and in very warm countries quite a lot.
That's great.
There are images of me wearing these in Bulgaria, Hawaii, Singapore, Shenzhen. I've worked. These have traveled with me quite a lot.
Aw, and they're with you during a time when you can't travel. How
Yes.
delightful.
Well, they're functional and they keep my feet relatively warm.
Going a
Perfect.
little bit off topic, Matteo, how do you feel about not being able to travel?
Yeah.
Because it could be a while. I mean, you're probably the most well-traveled person I know.
I'm quite comfortable with the concept. I understand what it means and how this is going to impact things. Obviously, I'm sad on a personal level. I quite enjoy the idea of it being faster for me to get from Edinburgh to my parents' house in Milan in less time than it would be to get the train from Edinburgh to London. That was one of the things that makes me so passionate about travel. Is it's amazing that we can do it. My worry is that will we be able to do it as affordably in the coming months and years? This crisis is obviously going to cause a lot of issues in the industry. It's going to weed out a lot of already inefficient businesses, and so we'll see, just have to see how it works out. The glimmer of hope is this new negative pricing for oil. May actually be a good thing. Oil production is a very complex industry that supplies travel in general as well as other industries. With people staying at home, with people not traveling, with people not consuming as much in the whole area of consumerism, there's a glut of oil, and it's so expensive to shut down oil wells and refineries that it's easier to just keep them on. But there's nowhere for the oil to go. So at the moment, you can be paid to get oil. So that may be the saving grace for the airline industry. I see Icelandair are already working on their air route art, so that they can burn a bit of extra oil. So I'm positive about it, but worried that it won't be as accessible as it was until
Do you
not long
think,
ago.
will Icelandair spell Greta in big letters?
Probably yes.
I didn't say that.
Well, the thing I was starting to start as a hashtag just
Yeah.
before it happened was waving at
Yeah.
Greta.
Oh,
It's funny, she's gone very, very quiet at the moment. The powers that be behind her have obviously bigger things to worry about at the moment. The issue there, I think, is that her movement was a bit too focused on travel, which is a very small proportion of carbon emissions and pollution. The biggest issue is actually much closer to home. It's things like industrial production, heating, home heating, whether it's central heating at a city level, or shipping it of goods in container vessels. That's the real polluters that we should really be worried about.
Somebody told me today that even though businesses don't really have anybody at work just now because everybody's gone home pretty much, most big buildings are still burning something like 80% of the same power because most of the internal systems still run just to keep them running, or they would seize up. And lights are still coming on, and emergency lights have to be on, and all these things that don't really change. They've only burned about 20% by the people not being there, which is staggering.
Yeah, it's one of those things. From what I hear from my colleagues in Singapore, they have switched off the air conditioning altogether.
Wow.
Which is the other big consumption of power is not heating and lighting, it's like air conditioning. So that's going to be, in a way, a saving for many businesses. But yes, it's one of those things. Is the working world going to change to the point that do we need offices?
yeah, that's been a lot of conversation that we've been having with my colleagues and various teams, and various execs are having kind of, just open conversations with people. And that's something that I'm curious about. And it's been nice to see some of the media speculation change a bit to be like, what kind of world will we come back to? And yeah, there's a lot of different kind of efficiencies and that has been happening through this. And one of the things that's been great, at least, is the human aspect. So, I mean, I know we already touched on Zoom fashion, but just at least what I saw through my company, which is a multinational corporation, is just right away everybody went to casual wear. We can hear kids in the background. People are just being a lot more human with like what's going on in people's real lives. Even though we are probably, this is the time to be most obnoxious about staying and being stuck to your computer because you are stuck in your house, so to speak. But it's nice to see at least that human side of things. So I do hope that that's at least something that stays, and just acknowledging that there's a lot more that goes on than just your work.
Yeah. And obviously for you and me, Laura, it's easy. We have cats. They love having us at home.
Very.
David, you have a bit more of a challenge with a young one. How is dealing with having a youngling during this period?
He's with his mum somewhere else.
Okay.
So that's not been. Well, it's hard not seeing him. I'll say that, but it's for the best not having him move back and forth like he usually would through the week. So he spends days here and days there. It's easier to be in one place just now, with a garden and things like that. So he's doing that. So it's just myself and Nicola. This is my office for now, and the dining room next door is Nicola's office at the BBC. And we sort of split different shifts doing things, and I make the dinner later on and stuff like that. So it kind of worked. The BBC, funnily enough, when I was there last year, we decided to become a guinea pig department and send everybody home for 2 months. Last summer, July and August, I think it was. So it was 1 week of the Scottish school holidays and 1 week of the English, just to split the load a little bit. But something like 130 people went to work from home overnight almost. We planned for it, so people got equipment to take home. So it wasn't done unnecessarily, but then it was all measured on the way through. We were surveyed every few weeks to make sure we didn't miss anything or each other, and actually learned some good things. And I think they may well be releasing some of the surveys, because we were only 4 weeks into this, pretty much. Well, 5 or 6 for us, but 4 for most people, where they went all the way through. And some people didn't really go back to normal after it. My friends that didn't really go back to the office more than 1 day a week because they got used to it. They changed the flexible hours, so you didn't have to be in fixed 9 to 5 and things like that. Because you were at home, you fitted around it. So it was a good experience. So I think they were going to open source some of the surveys to show how the outcome went after that length of time and see what people felt about it. Because it may be that some people want to go back to the office and some don't. And that might actually work quite well for distance.
Yes.
That's cool. That sounds very interesting.
And David, you've had quite a few experiences at different organizations that had different approaches to work from home or office time. What stood out from you from the BBC, how they did it compared to, say, other organizations that you've worked at?
So we didn't make it compulsory that you had to work at home, because we had some people, especially in the broadcast side, that wanted to interview people in person. So they might want to travel and meet somebody or use the equipment in the office that wasn't so easy to replicate at home. Although it turns out it is, because they're doing it now for different reasons. There's people doing radio shows for 10 million people from a house. It's amazing how easy it was in the end. But we had some people that just didn't really fancy it. So they were allowed to go in but didn't have to. That was the main thing. I think the best thing we did was just make it flexible. We had some minimal core working hours, and I actually forget what they were. It was something like 11 till 3 each day. You had to be around, and the Zoom calls were scheduled for then. Other people were in normal hours. Some people worked at night, and people started to fit their work and life around it. And that's the hard bit to get away from. Because if you go back to normal sort of office life after that, and you've got used to doing sort of stuff with the kids, do the school drop off, work 11 to 3, and fit the other 4 hours around it, or whatever it might be, quite hard to get back to 9 to 5, or to commute, which I do. So to have 3 hours back each day was something, rather than being on trains 3 hours a day. So it's the return to work that was the hard bit. And I think that's the bit we're going to have to manage for lots of people, especially commuters. A lot of people just, if it's 3 months of this, which it might well be to some extent, for people that might commute from somewhere like Perth to Edinburgh, and there's quite a lot of us do it, I don't really fancy going back to that. Even though I've done it for about 18 years, 3 months off it,
it's a big break.
to doing this. Yeah. So I think a lot of things will change, but some for the better.
Yeah. How do you see it happening, Laura, especially in, say, a multinational organization with offices in different time zones, teams in different time zones?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so our entire company, I don't know how many countries we are, but we all did work at home pretty much as of March 16th. So even countries that were not under had outbreaks, because at the time, like Japan, for example, didn't have an outbreak. So they've all been working from home for those who could, right? So our factories are still operational and are actually doing quite well, considering everything and not having a lot of downtime. So I don't fully know what the plan is. There's a lot of speculation about, kind of split shifts or in Switzerland, for example. I can't talk to other countries, but like Switzerland has already announced they're going to start easing up of lockdown measures as of next week. And what that means is the first to open are beauty parlors and florists and hardware stores. And the rationale on beauty parlors, other than giving a 6-week heads up to have everyone get their haircut, is that is appointment-based services. So they can do contact tracing if something happens. So that'll start. And then if all goes well, then mid-June, all retail will open. And if all goes well, then restaurants and bars will open in like July, right? So it's a steady thing. I've not heard from my company what the plan is, but there's been no let up on the requirement where you cannot meet with more than 5 people. So, my office is almost 3,000 people here in Lausanne. So that's way more than 5 people. So I'm sure they won't allow that open until kind of those measures have been reduced. But it's gonna be very interesting because the company I work for is very old school. This was definitely a big jumpstart to have everybody work from home remotely, and also we had a lot of face-to-face sales. So to kind of re-change how we did business to be digital first, and especially in places where we weren't fully ready for it, was a big leap over the last 5 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what stays, or if, kind of the dinosaur organization goes straight back to it, or if this helps, move forward or transformation. So I don't know, but it'll be very interesting as well, because the company I work for also has a lot of, travel around the world for a 2-day meeting and travel back. So it'll be interesting if the travel bar or the travel, crap, I forgot the word. If people do not travel as much, or if they just go back to business as usual. So I can see it both ways, right? There's an amazing article going around on Medium that's talking about gaslighting that'll happen, that they can perceive happening afterwards, which is, we're in this lovely time of being at home and being very introspective, focusing on families. But basically, as soon as the world opens up again, there could be a backlash coming in consumerism, where it's basically, okay, now you do need all of these things that now you have lived without, and kind of starting to gaslight the global population to be like, this did not exist. There was not this pandemic. There wasn't this global emergency where the whole world kind of paused for a bit. So I really hope that doesn't happen, because I think this is a good moment, as much as I am going through my own personal anxieties and, living a world away from my family, not knowing when I can see them again, is kind of a struggle. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be super interesting. I'm trying to stay optimistic, but it's, I'm sure with everyone, go through worst case scenario and positive, and yeah, it's definitely made me think a lot about what's important, and especially with like work and commute and, being able to just, okay, I'm stressed at 2:00. I'm going to go for a run. I never used to run before this. Right.
Yes, I've been taking regular walks and going out most days, something that I didn't do previously. So yes, it's a learning process for us all. It is tough in many cases. Shout out to the Tech Travel Geek's own anesthesiologist in the NHS. Majid is saying that it would be great to have barbers and hairdressers back on his family, and specifically his kids look like the it people from the Addams Family. And Majid, I understand how you feel. I was overdue for a haircut before this all happened. My last haircut was before I went to the States in February, and I was due a haircut after I got back, but then one thing led to another, and it's now towards the end of April.
I think your handlebar mustache would go really well with a bowl cut.
With a bald cut.
Bowl,
Oh, bowl cut.
like from the mid-90s when everybody was like in fourth grade.
So,
Yeah.
and then if I gel it back, it's a Nick Carter one.
Exactly. I think you've got lots of time to experiment with this.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sure Candice has a mixing bowl that will fit for the cut.
Right. Ask Candice. She should probably do it if she's up for it. Don't do it yourself.
Keep an eye on my Instagram. You never know what will happen. It's fine. As I was saying to David the other day, I've made peace with the fact that I have no street cred.
What was it triggered that again? I can't remember.
I don't know. Twitter is a marvelous place. It was interesting because there was interactions from friends in common that we have on Twitter. I believe one of them was Andrew Martinick. Laura, do you remember Andrew from your HTC days?
No, what's his
From
handle?
Seattle? Andrew Martinick. Android
Nope.
Central? Seattle based? No.
That version of Android Central did not come across my radar.
Let me see. It was here somewhere. So let's see. No.
It was about my chocolate or jobby thread.
Yeah. Oh yes. So
Probably best not to go into that.
yes, probably best not to go in, but give a bit more context. It's related to Barcelona 2015, when you were my guide in Col Blanc, Barcelona, for MWC. We went to a local eatery for brunch/lunch, and the TV had a whole documentary on poop emojis describing the
Jesus.
dangers of colon cancer. It was quite disturbing eating your local sausage whilst being warned about its dangers on television by a poop emoji in Spanish.
There is
But hey, memorable experience.
there's a drink linked through this story, Matteo, to bring it back to where we were.
Yes.
That was actually breakfast, even though it was about 12 or something. It was breakfast the next day after a night on Negroni.
It was.
There you go.
And speaking of Negroni, obviously it's not just a drink that I drink in Barcelona, it's a regular of mine. I have here notes. So I did not know who this person was, but apparently Lukash reminded me that Stanley Tucci did a Instagram video explaining how he makes a Negroni. So a Negroni is I would say, a staple cocktail in the world. It originates from Italy, and its base ingredients are gin, vermouth, preferably smooth, and it should actually be martini red, and Campari.
Oh,
Now, Stanley Tucci, in his position of power as a social media influencer and celebrity,
actor.
claims
He's an actor.
He's an
mainstream actor. Yeah.
he claims that you shouldn't be using martini. He does use another vermouth. He has gin and Campari, but he shakes it in a cocktail mixer and then pours it into a cocktail glass. Laura, how do you drink your Negroni, or how do you make a Negroni?
I drink it with my mouth, like most people.
That's a good start.
So I make it by stirring it, and mainly I have not tried the shaken, but since I saw that the Stanley Tucci posts go around, and actually Skillet's Lifehacker has an amazing write-up that is just much more sensual about a review of his making of a Negroni. And that's what I saw this morning. And it just made me just want to get drunk at 9 a.m. Right. Yeah. So I've not tried either way, but I'm very curious. And also it's similar to, the martini, making a martini, shaken or stirred, right? I'm a James Bond fan. So I'm always like, oh, shake it. But as a home cocktail maker, I'm lazy. And so if it's just a stirring, it's great. I don't have the muscles for the shaking, or I've not perfected that, but I'm sure I have time to figure it out. So I'm a Negroni stirrer.
Okay. David, how about you?
I'm gonna surprise you. I don't really like it.
Oh, okay.
I did when it was at 2 in the morning after quite a lot of other things, but as a first drink of the night, wouldn't be my choice to be honest. Especially the sort of shiver at the end when you taste whatever the bad stuff is that you put in it.
What's
You-
the bad stuff? Is that
I
the
don't know.
vermouth?
Matteo used to teach me you drink a Negroni sort of slowly, and then something sits at the bottom that tastes awful, and it sort of gives you the shivers.
You
I don't
don't
know what
drink
it
it
is.
all in one sitting, sir. I think that's the problem.
Mm.
Yeah, so Negronis, in my view, should not be shaken. They should just be stirred. Part of their allure is the oily components mixing over ice. As the ice melts, it gets everything swirling, and it has to be in a pint glass, not a cocktail glass. I'm sorry, Stanley Tucci.
Oh, I'm with Stanley. I'll put it in a cocktail glass.
Okay. I'm of the Milanese school of the Negroni. So Negroni is a northern Italian cocktail. Martini being Turin's big drink, and Campari being Milan's big drink, and gin just being a very popular Italian drink. Even though they tend to use London dry gin for the Negroni. And so I'm going to go with the traditional. It has to be a big cocktail glass, a big sort of pint glass. You fill it with ice, and then a third, a third, a third. Very simple. And as the ice melts, it is a bit of an acquired taste. It's slightly bitter, but it works, and it tends to be the most popular drink in my recollection during the summers in outdoor nightclubs, because the amount of ice and alcohol was just about right.
I guess I usually don't serve it over ice, so I'll have to try that. I guess there's at least 2 Negronis in my future. 3, if I really do a taste test.
Good. And Negroni is obviously named after the bartender who invented the drink, but may also have other meanings depending on the part of Italy that you take that from. But David, if I'm not mistaken, last time you were in Seattle, you posted something on Twitter about barrel-aged Negroni.
Oh, talk.
That's escaped me, or left my mind. Go and remind me.
Yes, no, you tweeted it, our friend Mario, who's from the north of Italy as well, that Seattle was doing barrel-aged Negroni when you were over there working with Amazon.
I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
I don't know your memory, but I am happy to participate in this. So this is a hot debate in my household because I found out that my lovely alcohol source sells barrels now, which is exciting. So barrel-aged cocktails are magnificent. And I actually had my first barrel-aged Negroni. Yeah, it was Negroni in Portland and Oregon. So it's just, I mean, it's your favorite things all put in a barrel, and then it just like gets richer over time. So it's a delight. But I've lost the agreement or lost the argument. My defense was weak about having cocktails on tap during this time because we decided that would probably be a detriment to our health and our organs if that happens. So at some point in my life, I will have a barrel and have barrel-aged cocktails, but probably when there's a party of more than 2 people to help drink it. But they're fabulous. They're fabulous. Barrel-aged cocktails are great.
Yeah, I agree with you that having it on tap would be fantastic. What I would like is, this is a recollection from Vegas a few years ago, is one of the mixer taps. So you know the soft drink mixers that you press a button and they squish out drinks. In some of the casinos in Vegas, they have those that serve the pre-mixed drink. So Jack Daniels and Coke, or gin and tonic, or gin and bitter lemon. They just press the button and they all come out ready-made. I would like to have one of those in the house at some point. My soda stream doesn't compete at the moment. So, I think we've covered most of our gin and cocktail drinking and our desires for travel to come back better than it was before, as well as our drinks whilst travelling. Laura, I hope the rest of your lockdown in Switzerland goes great. What would you like to shout out about? Do you have any future comedy shows coming up?
That's funny. Yeah, that's good. No, I've got no future comedy shows coming up, but hopefully once people can collect again, I will go back and pound the mic and get back on that circuit to work on my European residency of my stand-up comedy career. So no shout outs right now. Just if you want to check my current alcohol intake or what drinks are being made tonight, Instagram is kind of where they all end up. And so I'm at Cheeky Lamiki, and cheeky like the Brits talk about it, and Lamiki. So that's usually where you can go and find photos of my cats or empty bottles of what I'm drinking.
Excellent. And yes, the little Minnie is a wonderful, wonderful subject of many Instagram posts.
She's fabulous. She doesn't drink.
Even better. How about you, David? What would you like to shout out about, apart from Belfield Brewery with their free delivery?
It's not free, sadly. I'll come back to that.
Oh.
2 shouts from me, I guess. So for my lovely colleagues at The List, who have sacrificed a lot in the last month to keep us going as we are. Some of them, sadly, are furloughed, as many people are in Britain at the minute, but we're all still a team somehow. We've pivoted to, since you mentioned stand-up comedy, we've pivoted to running online event listings instead of venue event listings and tickets recently. So we have something like 300 online gigs at any given time on our site. Partner with some people to bring things that shut down and then came back online differently in the last few weeks. And credit to them for keeping the lights on. And just secondly, Belfield, as you mentioned, similarly, Belfield's a lovely family-run brewery in Edinburgh, which serves gluten-free beer. Normally, they run a tap room. Matteo and I may be there at this time of the week for the quiz night, but sadly, it's having to close for now. So they have both a drive-through pickup for people that live in Edinburgh, and they're doing beer by post for those that don't. For anybody in Edinburgh, they've started to sell kegs this week that you can take to your house with their own tap in them. The key is you have to drink it quick before it goes flat. So it's a good and a bad thing. But Matteo should try and get yourself one of those. But shout out to them for keeping going and serving beer to the people of Edinburgh and hopefully beyond once this is all done.
Yes. Belfield, I personally recommend the Pilsner, a very nice light beer. It's very tasty. You wouldn't know it's a gluten-free beer had you not been told. Great. So the Tech Travel Geeks will probably resume their tech coverage very soon. We have gone against the mainstream this month. We are reviewing the Nokia One, a £59 smartphone from Nokia, which is surprisingly good for its price and takes decent cat pictures. So keep an eye on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, as usual. Again, David and Laura, thank you for joining us on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast for this special podcast. We will be editing it all and adding links to all the subjects we were discussing on the description to the video as well.
Thanks for inviting and having me, and nice to meet you, David.
And yourself, Matteo. See you again soon.
Great, thank you. Speak to you all soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.